The massive alien ships descended through Earth's atmosphere like falling stars, their hulls gleaming silver against the afternoon sky. The jungle below barely stirred as the vessels settled into a clearing that the aliens had carved out with their energy weapons in seconds. Trees that had stood for centuries were reduced to ash, and the air smelled of burning vegetation and ozone. Commander Thrallix stepped out of the lead ship, his forelegs clicking against the metal ramp. He stood nearly 8 feet tall, with armor that shimmered with energy shields. Behind him, 49 more Vraxian soldiers emerged, each one equipped with weapons that could level buildings. They had conquered 47 worlds before this one. Earth would be number 48. Primitive, Thrallix said, his translator device converting his chittering language into something humans could understand. Look at this vegetation. No order, no structure. How do they live in such chaos? His second in command, a veteran soldier named Kelvar, activated his scanner, detecting multiple life forms. Most are small. Nothing that poses a threat to our shields. The dominant species uses chemical propellant weapons. Very basic technology. 3 kilometers away, Captain Junho lay perfectly still on a tree branch. His body was covered in mud and leaves, his breathing slow and controlled. Through his binoculars, he watched the aliens set up their camp. Next to him, Sergeant Minji made notes on a waterproof pad. She didn't use any electronic devices. Nothing that could give off a signal. "They're making a lot of noise," Minji whispered in Korean. Her English was perfect, but with Junho, she spoke their native language. And those lights, they might as well paint targets on themselves. Junho nodded slowly. They think they've already won. That makes them dangerous and stupid at the same time. Below them, hidden in the undergrowth, the rest of their team waited. Lieutenant Yuna monitored the alien radio frequencies with equipment so old it wouldn't show up on modern scanners. Corporal Dayan checked his rifle for the 5th time, though it didn't need checking. Specialists Haijin, Kyungmin, Sungho, Taiwan, Jiwan Bora, and Jiwoo were spread out in a pattern that gave them overlapping fields of observation without clustering together. They were 12. People against 50 alien soldiers with technology centuries ahead of Earth's. And they were exactly where they wanted to be. The diplomatic meeting happened 2 days later in a hastily constructed building near the landing site. The world's leaders had gathered, along with military commanders from every major nation. Junho's team had been pulled back to observe, but not participate. They watched through cameras as Thrallix made his presentation. "Your world interests the Vraxian Empire," the alien commander said, his image projected on screens around the room. "We have observed your species. You have potential, but you lack discipline. You lack proper technology. You fight among yourselves over resources that could be easily synthesized." The American general bristled. "We're managing just fine." Thrallix made a sound that the translator interpreted as laughter. "Are you? Your soldiers carry weapons that use controlled explosions to propel metal slugs. We have energy weapons that can vaporize your tanks. Your fighter jets are impressive for atmospheric flight, but our ships travel between stars. You're children playing with toys." A Korean general stood up. His name was Park, and he had known Junho since the captain was a young lieutenant. "Perhaps we're not as advanced as you, but we know our world. We've survived here for thousands of years." "Survival is not victory," Thrallix replied. "But I am not without mercy. I propose a demonstration. A training exercise. Your best soldiers against mine. We will conduct a 72-hour survival exercise in this jungle terrain. No orbital support for my troops. No infrastructure for yours. Simple soldier against soldier. If your people win, we will negotiate as equals. If my people win, you will accept that the Vraxian way is superior." The room fell silent. It was a trap, obviously, but it was also an opportunity. If the aliens could be beaten, even in a limited engagement, it would change the entire dynamic of first contact. General Park looked directly at the camera he knew was transmitting to Jun-Ho's location. "We accept, but we choose our team, and we choose the location." "Agreed," Thralik said immediately. "Choose your location. Choose your warriors. It will not matter." That night, Jun-Ho gathered his team around a map of the Amazon rainforest. They were in a secure facility, but they still spoke quietly. Habits formed over years of operations. "They want to prove they're superior," Jun-Ho said. "So we let them think they are. We let them bring all their technology, their shields, their sensors, their fancy armor." Minji smiled. "And then we show them what happens when technology meets terrain it wasn't designed for." Yuna pointed to a section of the map. "This area. Triple canopy jungle, rivers, steep ravines. If it rains, it floods. The humidity will play havoc with their equipment. The temperature changes will confuse their thermal sensors," added Q-Min. "And there are animals there that their databases won't recognize. Animals that don't care about energy shields." Jun-Ho looked at each member of his team. They were the best Korea had produced, trained in mountains and jungles since they were teenagers. They could survive for weeks with nothing but a knife and their knowledge. They could move through terrain that would kill unprepared soldiers in days. "Remember," he said quietly, "this isn't about killing them. This is about teaching them. We show them that Earth isn't weak. We're just different. And different doesn't mean inferior." The team nodded. In 3 days, they would enter the jungle. The aliens would come with their technology and their confidence. They would come as conquerors. But they would leave as students if they were lucky enough to leave at all. The hunt was about to begin. The Vraxian soldiers entered the jungle like they were invading a city. Their hover platforms kept them 3 feet above the ground, gliding over roots and streams without effort. Energy cutters hummed as they carved paths through vegetation. Overhead, their communication satellites tracked everything within a 50-kilometer radius. Thralik watched his troops spread out information from his command. Position. Maintain spacing. Keep shields at 70%. Watch for ambush points, though I doubt these primitives will try anything sophisticated. Kelvar checked his scanner. No electronic signatures detected. No heat signatures matching human parameters. Either they haven't arrived yet, or they're hiding underground. They're scared, Thralik decided. They know they cannot win. 5 meters away, buried under a layer of leaves and mud, Specialist Taiwan breathed through a reed. His body temperature matched the surrounding soil. His heartbeat was slow, controlled through meditation techniques his instructors had taught him. The alien scanner passed right over him without detecting anything unusual. When the Vraxian patrol moved on, Taiwan slowly reached for the small radio at his side. He clicked it once. No voice, no transmission. Just a single click that the other team members would feel as a vibration against their skin. Target confirmed. Moving north. JUNHO received the signal and smiled. The aliens were following exactly the path he had predicted. They were taking the easy route, the one with the fewest obstacles, the one that looked safe. Haijin, he whispered. Are we ready? Specialist Haijin nodded. She had spent the last 6 hours preparing the jungle itself. Every plant, every insect, every natural feature had been turned into part of a trap that wouldn't register on any scanner because it wasn't artificial. It was just nature, arranged with purpose. The first Vraxian to die didn't die from a bullet. He died from not understanding where he was. The soldier's name was Trocanil, and he was experienced. He had fought on 7 worlds. He knew urban combat, desert warfare, and void battles. But he had never fought in a jungle. When his hover platform passed over what looked like solid ground, he didn't notice the thin layer of leaves covering a pit. The platform's anti-gravity field failed when it lost contact with a stable surface. Trocanil fell 6 feet into water that Hyjin had channeled from a nearby stream. The water itself wouldn't have been dangerous, but the bullet ants living in the submerged log were very much a threat. Trocanil's shields protected him from energy weapons and projectiles. They did nothing against insects that were already inside the shield perimeter. His screams brought 3 other soldiers running. Corporal Sung-ho watched from above as the aliens rushed to help their companion. They were brave. He respected that. But bravery without awareness was just another way to die. The tree had been dead for weeks, killed by a precise application of natural toxins to its root system. It was held in place by vines that Sung-ho had carefully arranged. When he cut the main vine with his knife, the tree fell exactly where he had calculated it would fall. 2 aliens went down under the massive trunk. Their shields flared and held against the initial impact. But shields were designed for directed energy, not for sustained pressure. When a 10-ton tree settled on top of them, the shields failed within seconds. Thrallix heard the screams over his communication system. "What's happening?" "Report! Ambush!" Kelvar shouted. "We have casualties. 3 down, maybe 4. From what? Weapons fire? Energy signatures? No, a tree fell on them. And something bit Trocanil. He's in shock." Thrallix felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Confusion. A tree? How does a tree fall at the exact moment? He stopped. It was cut. Find the humans. Find them now. The Vraxians scattered, scanning the jungle with every sensor they had. They found nothing. No heat signatures. No movement. No electromagnetic emissions. The jungle was full of life, but none of it registered as human. Sergeant Minji moved through the canopy like a shadow. Her hands and feet found holds that the aliens below would never see. She had grown up climbing mountains in Korea. This jungle was different, but the principles were the same. Know the terrain. Become part of it. Let it hide you. She watched an alien soldier pass directly beneath her, his scanner active and searching. The device was sophisticated enough to detect a human heartbeat from 100 meters away. But Minji's heart was beating at 40 beats per minute, slow enough that it didn't register as human. And she was 30 meters up, hidden by leaves and branches that confused the scanner's return signal. When the alien moved on, she tapped her radio twice. 2 targets, northeast quadrant. Lieutenant Yuna received the signal and updated her mental map of alien positions. She had been monitoring their communications since the exercise began. They used encryption, but it was encryption designed to stop other computers, not to stop a human who understood pattern recognition and signal analysis. "They're getting angry," she whispered to Corporal Dayan. "Scared and angry. That's when they make mistakes." Dayan nodded. He was watching a group of aliens set up what they thought was a defensive position. They had their backs to a rocky outcrop, their sensors facing outward. It was tactically sound for conventional warfare, but they hadn't checked the rocks behind them. They hadn't noticed the narrow gap that a human could squeeze through. They hadn't realized that Corporal Jiwon was already behind their lines, watching them from a hiding spot she had occupied for 3 hours. Jiwon waited until dark. The aliens had night vision, but night vision had weaknesses. It relied on light amplification or thermal imaging. It didn't work well when someone knew how to manage their heat signature and move in the shadows. Between light sources, she didn't attack them. She didn't need to. Instead, she took their equipment. One by one, carefully and silently, she removed power cells, ration packs, and water recyclers. By the time the aliens realized what was happening, G1 was gone, and they were stranded without supplies. Thr all single quotes. IX listened to the reports with growing concern. 4 casualties from environmental hazards. 5 teams reporting missing equipment. No confirmed sightings of human soldiers. No engagement at all. They're not fighting us, he said slowly. They're hunting us. Kelvar shook his head. Commander, that's not possible. They're primitives. They don't have the training or the look at the facts. Thralik snapped. Every casualty has been from environmental manipulation. Every theft has happened without detection. They're not trying to kill us. They're trying to break us psychologically. And it's working. He pulled up a map of their positions. His troops were scattered, isolated, and increasingly paranoid. Every sound made them jump. Every shadow looked like an enemy dot in the jungle. Juno watched through his binoculars and allowed himself a small smile. 24 hours down. 48 to go. And the aliens were just beginning to understand what they had walked into. The hunt had begun, and Earth's soldiers were teaching the galaxy a very old lesson. Technology could take you to the stars, but it couldn't make you a warrior. That required something else entirely. The second day in the jungle brought rain. Not the gentle rain that the Vraxians had experienced on other worlds, but the kind of rain that turned the jungle into a wall of water. Visibility dropped to nothing. The sound drowned out communication, and the temperature dropped just enough to make thermal sensors useless. Thralix huddled under a portable shelter that his troops had deployed. The shelter kept the rain off, but it also made them a visible target. He knew this. He didn't care anymore. They needed rest, and rest required staying dry. Status report, he demanded. Kalvar looked exhausted. 15 casualties so far. None fatal, but all requiring medical evacuation. We've lost contact with 3 patrol groups. They're not responding to communication, but their life signs are stable according to medical scanners. How is that possible? Unknown, Commander. It's as if they simply vanished. What Kalvar didn't know was that those 3 patrol groups were currently sitting in a cave system that Specialist Kyungmin had found 2 days before the exercise began. They weren't hurt. They weren't even prisoners in the traditional sense. They were just trapped behind a rockfall that had been very carefully arranged to look natural. Inside the cave, the aliens sat in confused silence. One of them had found a note written in perfect Vraxian script. You are safe. Water drips from the ceiling. Edible mushrooms grow on the north wall. Exit will be clear in 48 hours. Learn patience. Lieutenant Yuna had written the note after spending 2 weeks learning Vraxian through their public transmissions. She had a gift for languages, and a gift for psychological warfare. Above ground, the rain continued. Junho's team didn't hide from it. They used it. Corporal Jiwon moved from position to position, her footsteps masked by the sound of water hitting leaves. She carried a traditional Korean flute that her grandmother had given her before she joined the military. She played it now, the notes echoing through the jungle in a way that the rain couldn't quite muffle. The melody was old, older than Korea itself. It was a song about spirits in the mountains, about things that watched from the shadows. The Vraxian soldiers heard it and felt their skin crawl. The translator couldn't interpret music, couldn't tell them what the notes meant. But the primitive part of their brains, the part that existed before technology, understood perfectly. They were being watched. They were being hunted. Where is that coming from? A soldier named Vextar demanded, his weapon raised. His companion checked the scanner. Everywhere. The sound is bouncing off the trees. I can't get a fix on the source. The music stopped. Then it started again from a different direction. Then another. Jiwon wasn't alone. Specialist Bora and Jiwoo had flutes too. They were playing the same song from different positions, creating an effect that made it seem like the jungle itself was making music. Throlix ordered his troops to ignore it. It's a psychological tactic. Don't let it affect you. But it was already too late. Fear had taken root. The Vraxians started seeing movement in every shadow. They fired at sounds that turned out to be animals. They jumped at falling branches. Their discipline was cracking. Sergeant Minji watched this from her position in the canopy and nodded to herself. Fear was a weapon. Not the fear of death, but the fear of the unknown. These aliens had conquered worlds with superior firepower. They had never faced an enemy that attacked their minds. She moved to her next position, a journey that took 2 hours of careful climbing and crawling. When she arrived, she found what she was looking for, the alien supply cache. They had hidden it well, buried under camouflage that would fool most sensors. But they had forgotten that humans could track by more than electronics. Minji had followed the pattern of foot traffic, the slight disturbances in soil that indicated frequent visits to one location. She didn't destroy the cache. That would have been obvious. Instead, she rearranged it. The weapons were moved to the food section. The medical supplies were where the weapons had been. The power cells were scattered and hidden individually throughout the area. When the next supply team arrived, they would find everything present but wrong. They would waste hours searching for equipment that was right in front of them. And they would know that the humans had been there, had touched their things, had invaded their safe space. Specialist Taiwan was implementing his own plan. He had found the alien communication relay, a small device attached to a tree that boosted their signals. He didn't destroy it. Instead, he attached a small piece of equipment that Lieutenant Yuna had built. The device was simple. It recorded the alien transmissions, delayed them by 3 seconds, and played them back at random intervals. The result was chaos. Aliens heard orders that had been given minutes ago. They responded to questions that nobody had asked. Their communication network became unreliable, and unreliable communication was worse than no communication at all. By the 36th hour, the Vraxian force was in disarray. Throlix called a meeting of his remaining squad leaders. They gathered in a clearing, shields overlapping to create a protected zone. "We need to adapt," Throlix said. "Our technology is being turned against us. The jungle interferes with our sensors. The humans have found ways to bypass our advantages. Then what do we do?" Kelvar asked. "We fight like they fight. We turn off the sensors. We rely on our eyes and ears. We move slowly and carefully. We become hunters instead of soldiers." It was a good plan. It showed that Throlix was capable of learning. But it was also too late. The humans had already established dominance in the jungle. They knew every tree, every stream, every animal path. The aliens were trying to learn in hours what the humans had spent years mastering. Specialist Kyungmin demonstrated this reality from 800 meters away. He lay on a platform he had built in a tree, his rifle resting on a bipod made from branches. The rifle was old by modern standards, using chemical propellant to fire metal bullets. But it was reliable, accurate, and most importantly, it didn't produce an energy signature. He watched through his scope as an alien fire team tried to set up a defensive position. They were doing better now, moving carefully and checking their surroundings. But they made one critical error. They clustered around their shield generator, the device that protected them from attack. Kyungmin calculated wind speed, humidity, and bullet drop. He had one shot before they would track the sound. One chance to make his point. He fired. The bullet traveled through gaps in the foliage that Kyungmin had carefully mapped over the last day. It struck the shield generator's control panel with precision, not penetrating the armor, but damaging the external interface. The shields flickered and died. Before the aliens could react, Smoke grenades erupted around them. Not modern smoke grenades, but burning plant material that Hygiene had prepared. The smoke was thick and disorienting, and it carried compounds that made the aliens' eyes water and their breathing difficult. Shapes moved through the smoke. The aliens raised their weapons, but they couldn't see targets. They felt hands on their equipment, removing weapons and communication devices with professional efficiency. Then the shapes were gone, and the smoke began to clear. The aliens stood in their defensive position, unharmed but completely disarmed. At their feet was a message written in the dirt. "You are learning." Too slowly. Thrallix received the report and felt something he hadn't felt since his first combat experience decades ago. Respect for his enemy. These humans weren't primitive. They were masters of their environment. And they were teaching the Vraxian Empire a lesson that no amount of technology could replace. The hunt continued, but now both sides knew the truth. The Vraxians weren't the hunters. They were the prey. The third day began with Thrallix making a decision that shocked his troops. He ordered them to leave most of their technology behind. No more hover platforms. No more energy weapons. No more reliance on scanners and shields. "We carry only basic equipment," he announced. "We move on foot. We watch the terrain. We listen to the jungle. We become part of this environment, not invaders in it." Calver looked uncertain. "Commander, that puts us at a severe disadvantage." "We're already at a disadvantage," Thrallix replied. "Our technology made us blind. It's time we opened our eyes." The Vraxian soldiers adapted as best they could. They moved slower now, placing each foot carefully. They watched for disturbances in the vegetation. They listened for sounds that didn't belong, for species that had relied on technology for generations. It was like learning to walk again. And slowly, gradually, they began to improve. Corporal Daeun noticed the change from his observation post. The aliens were quieter now, more careful. They checked behind them. They varied their routes. They were thinking like soldiers instead of relying on machines to think for them. "They're learning," he reported to JUNHO. JUNHO nodded. "Good. That's the point. We're not here to humiliate them. We're here to teach them that Earth isn't weak. We're different." But the lesson wasn't over yet. Specialist Bora moved through the upper canopy like she had been born there. Her small frame was an advantage in the trees, allowing her to use branches that wouldn't support a larger person. She could travel faster through the canopy than most people could walk on the ground. She was tracking a group of 5 Vraxian soldiers who had separated from the main force. They were moving well now, watching their surroundings, communicating with hand signals. But they made one mistake. They focused on the ground and the middle level of the jungle. They never looked up. Bora followed them for 3 hours, always staying 30 meters above them. She watched them find water, watched them set up a rest position, watched them eat rations and check their limited equipment. They never knew she was there. When she finally revealed herself, it wasn't with violence. She simply dropped a small package onto the ground next to their camp. Then she disappeared back into the canopy before they could react. The aliens approached the package carefully, weapons ready. Inside, they found field rations, water purification tablets, and a note in Vraxian script. "You are doing better. Keep learning." One of the aliens looked up into the canopy, trying to spot the human who had been watching them. He saw nothing but leaves and branches, but he knew she was there somewhere. And he knew that if she had wanted to harm them, they would never have seen it coming. Sergeant Minji was implementing a different kind of lesson. She had been tracking Kelvar, Thrallix's second-in-command, for the better part of a day. The Vraxian officer was competent. He moved well, watched his surroundings, and didn't waste energy on unnecessary actions. But he was thirsty. Minji could see it in the way he checked his water supply every few minutes. The Vraxians had lost most of their water recyclers in the earlier engagements. They were learning to find water in the jungle, but it was a skill that took time to develop. Minji watched Kelvar walk past a stream 3 times without seeing it. The stream was hidden under vegetation, its sound masked by other jungle noises. To someone who didn't know what to look for, it was invisible. On the 4th pass, Minji stepped out from her hiding place. She was 10 meters away, covered in mud and leaves, her weapon slung across her back in a non-threatening position. Kelvar saw her and raised his energy pistol. The pistol was one of the few pieces of technology they had kept for emergencies. "I am not here to fight," Minji said calmly. Her translator device converted her Korean into Vraxian. "I am here to teach." "Teach what?" Kelvar demanded, his weapon still raised. Minji pointed to the ground near his feet. "You walked past water 3 times. You will die of thirst because you cannot see what is in front of you." Kelvar looked down. For the first time, he noticed the slight depression in the ground, the different sound the leaves made, the specific plants that only grew near water. The stream was right there, hidden in plain sight. "Your technology made you deaf to the world," Minji continued. "Here, that means you die. But you are learning. That is good." She reached into her pack and pulled out a standard military canteen. She tossed it to Kelvar, who caught it reflexively. The canteen was full of clean water. "You have 48 hours of training left," Minji said. "Use them well." She turned and walked into the jungle. Kelvar aimed his weapon at her retreating form, but he didn't fire. She had been close enough to kill him at any moment. Instead, she had given him water and advice. He holstered his weapon and looked at the stream he had missed 3 times. Then he knelt down and began to study it, learning what he should have known before entering this environment. Thrallix was having his own revelation. He sat alone in a small clearing, his communication device silent. He had ordered radio silence to prevent the humans from tracking their transmissions. But the silence also gave him time to think. His empire had conquered 47 worlds. They had superior technology, superior firepower, superior numbers. But they had never faced an enemy like this. An enemy that didn't try to match their technology, but instead used the environment as a weapon. An enemy that could have killed them all, but chose to teach instead. He thought about the note in the dirt. "You are learning." Too slowly. It was true. They were learning, but at a pace that would have gotten them killed in a real war. The humans had controlled this engagement from the beginning. Every casualty, every theft, every psychological attack had been calculated to break down Vraxian confidence without causing permanent harm. It was brilliant. And it was humbling. A sound made him look up. A young human woman stood at the edge of the clearing. She was small, probably no more than 20 years old. Her face was painted with mud, and leaves were woven into her hair. She looked like part of the jungle itself. Specialist Ji Woo had been watching Thrallix for 2 hours, waiting for the right moment. She held no weapon. She simply stood there, letting him see her. "You know we could have killed you," she said through her translator. Her voice was gentle, almost kind. "On the first day. On the second day. At any moment." Thrallix nodded slowly. "I know. Do you understand why we did not?" He thought about this. "You wanted to prove a point. That your species is capable." Ji-woo shook her head. "We wanted to teach you respect. Not fear. Respect. You came to our world thinking we were primitive. Thinking your technology made you superior. But technology is just a tool. It is not wisdom. It is not skill. It is not understanding." She gestured to the jungle around them. "This is our home. We know every plant, every animal, every sound. We have lived here for thousands of years. Your empire is powerful, but you forgot what it means to truly know a place. To be part of it. Thrallix felt his preconceptions crumbling. "What do you want from us?" "Respect," Jiwoo repeated. "Respect for Earth. Respect for humans. Respect for the fact that different does not mean inferior." She turned to leave, then paused. "There is fruit 20 meters north of here. It is safe to eat. And there is a shelter from the coming rain 30 meters west. We have been leaving these things for all your troops, because this was never about defeating you. It was about teaching you." She disappeared into the jungle, leaving Thrallix alone with his thoughts and a new understanding of the species he had underestimated. The final hours of the exercise arrived with a dawn that painted the jungle in shades of gold and green. The Vraxian soldiers, exhausted and humbled, made their way toward the extraction point. They moved carefully now, watching the terrain, listening to the sounds around them. They had learned much in 72 hours, but they knew it wasn't enough. I'll single quotes. IX led his remaining troops through the jungle with new eyes. Of his original 50 soldiers, 30 remained in the field. The others had been evacuated with injuries ranging from broken bones to severe allergic reactions to local plants. Not a single Vraxian had died, and that fact spoke volumes about their opponent's intentions. "Commander," Kalvar said quietly, "we're being watched." Thrallix nodded. "We have been watched since we entered this jungle. Probably since before we entered it. Should we try to locate them?" "No. Let them reveal themselves when they choose to." The extraction point was a clearing that both sides had agreed upon before the exercise began. As the Vraxians approached, Thrallix realized something that made his skin crawl. The clearing was surrounded by elevated positions. The trees formed a natural amphitheater. Anyone approaching would be visible from dozens of vantage points. It was the perfect place for an ambush. He raised his hand, stopping his troops at the edge of the clearing. "This is a kill zone," he said. "If the humans wanted to attack us, this is where they would do it." His soldiers tensed, raising their remaining weapons. But Thrallix lowered his own pistol and stepped into the clearing alone. "I request parley," he called out in English, speaking through his translator. "I wish to speak with your commander." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then Captain Junho stepped out from behind a tree that was barely wide enough to hide him. He had been there the entire time, less than 10 meters from the Vraxian column. None of them had seen him. Behind Junho, the rest of his team emerged from the jungle like ghosts materializing from mist. They came from above, from the ground, from behind rocks and trees. Each one had been close enough to touch the aliens as they passed. Sergeant Minji stood next to a Vraxian soldier who visibly jumped when he realized she had been right beside him. Lieutenant Yuna emerged from a hiding spot underneath a fallen log. Specialists Haijin, Kyungmin, Sungho, Taiwan, Jiwon, Bora, and Jiwoo appeared from positions that seemed impossible. Corporal Dayan had been lying flat against a tree branch directly above Thrallix's head. He dropped down now, landing lightly on the ground. The Vraxian commander flinched, reaching for his weapon, then forced himself to relax. "Your team?" Thrallix asked Junho. "All 12 of us," Junho confirmed. "We have been with you for the entire exercise." Thrallix looked at his remaining 30 soldiers, then at the 12 humans who had defeated them without firing a single shot in anger. The mathematics of it was impossible to deny. 12 against 50, and the 50 had lost. "You could have killed us," Thrallix said. "Many times," Junho agreed. "But that was never the purpose of this exercise. You challenged us to prove ourselves. We have done so. Now we need to talk about what comes next." Thrallix ordered his soldiers to lower their weapons. They complied reluctantly, still processing the fact that they had been surrounded without knowing it. "We were arrogant," Thrallix admitted. We saw your primitive technology and assumed you were primitive people. We forgot that a warrior's worth is not measured in his weapons, but in his skills and knowledge. Junho nodded. Your technology is impressive. Your ships can cross stars. Your weapons can destroy cities. But you forgot how to live in a world that doesn't bend to your will. You forgot how to adapt. We have conquered 47 worlds, Throlix said, and there was no pride in his voice now, only contemplation. We won through superior technology. We overwhelmed our enemies with firepower. But if we had faced enemies like you, enemies who understood their environment and used it as a weapon, we would have lost. Perhaps, Junho said. Or perhaps you would have learned as you began to learn these last 3 days. You are capable of adaptation, Commander. You proved it when you abandoned your technology and tried to fight on our terms. You just need practice. Kelver stepped forward. You gave us water, food. You warned us about dangers. Why? We are your enemies in this exercise. Sergeant Minji answered. Because this was never about making enemies. This was about earning respect. We could have killed you, but then you would have learned nothing. Your empire would have seen Earth as a threat to be destroyed. Instead, you have seen Earth as a teacher. There's a difference. Specialist Jiwoo added, we wanted you to understand that humans are not primitive. We are simply different. We choose to live with our world instead of conquering it. We have learned its secrets over thousands of years. That knowledge is not inferior to your technology. It is just different. Throlix felt something shift in his understanding. The Vraxian Empire had always measured civilizations by their technology level. Advanced technology meant advanced civilization. But these humans had shown him another measure. Knowledge of environment, adaptability, patience. Skills that couldn't be bought or manufactured. I understand now, he said, and I will make sure my superiors understand as well. Earth will be treated as an equal, not as a primitive world to be managed. Junho extended his hand in the human gesture of greeting. Throlix looked at it for a moment, then reached out with one of his own limbs and grasped it. We have much to teach each other, Junho said. Your technology could help us explore beyond our world. Our understanding of natural systems could help your people remember skills they have forgotten. This could be the beginning of a real partnership. I would like that, Throlix replied. The extraction ships arrived an hour later. As the Vraxian soldiers boarded, many of them looked back at the jungle with new respect. It had tested them in ways that no enemy had tested them before. It had broken their confidence and then taught them how to rebuild it on a foundation of real skill rather than technological superiority. Junho's team watched the ships depart, then began the long hike back to their own extraction point. They moved through the jungle with the same efficiency they had shown throughout the exercise, reading the terrain, placing their feet carefully, becoming part of the environment. Do you think they really learned? Corporal Dayan S.Junho smiled. They learned that Earth isn't weak. They learned that different civilizations have different strengths. And they learned that before you judge someone as primitive, you should make sure you can survive in their world. Lieutenant Yuna checked her equipment. I heard Throlix already sent his report to the Vraxian High Command. He recommended that Earth be approached as an equal partner, not as a target for integration. Apparently, he was very emphatic about it. Good, Minji said. That was the goal. We didn't need to prove we could kill them. We needed to prove we deserved respect. Specialist Keelman looked back at the jungle one last time. You think other alien species will hear about this? Probably, Junho replied. Word travels fast in the galaxy, or so the Vraxians told us. By next month, every species with faster-than-light communication will have heard the story of how Earth soldiers defeated advanced alien troops without firing a shot. What do you think they'll call us? Asked a specialist Burrow.Junho considered this. Probably something dramatic. The galaxy seems to like dramatic names. But what they call us doesn't matter. What matters is that they'll know not to underestimate Earth. Not because we're the strongest or the most advanced, but because we understand our home. And anyone who wants to challenge us here will have to learn what the Vraxians learned. What's that? Asked Ji Woo. That technology can take you to the stars, Junho said, but it can't make you a warrior. That requires something deeper. Something that can't be manufactured or bought. It requires understanding, adaptation, and respect for the world around you. The Vraxians came here with the best equipment in the galaxy. We met them with mud, leaves, and knowledge passed down through generations. And knowledge won. The team continued their journey home, leaving the jungle unchanged, except for the lessons it had taught. Behind them, the Amazon rainforest continued its eternal rhythm, keeping its secrets, waiting for the next challenger who would learn what Earth's defenders already knew. Respect was earned, not demanded. And Earth had earned it without firing a single bullet in anger. In the months that followed, the story of the jungle exercise spread throughout the Vraxian Empire and beyond. It became a teaching example in military academies across multiple worlds. The humans who could defeat advanced soldiers with primitive tools. The warriors who turned nature itself into a weapon. But Junho and his team didn't become famous. They went back to their regular duties, training in mountains and jungles, passing their knowledge to the next generation of soldiers. Because for them, it had never been about glory. It had been about protecting their home and proving that Earth deserved its place among the stars. And they had succeeded.